Now we are going to discuss the second topic, which is changes in circulation after birth. They are divided into primary changes and secondary changes. Before that, I'm going to tell you about two things which happen when a child is born. First is a child takes his or her first breath. The second is closure of cutting or closure of umbilical cord. As we cut the umbilical cord, there is closure of umbilical arteries and closure of umbilical veins. The functional closure of umbilical arteries is almost instantaneous, preventing even slight amount of fetal blood to drain out. However, the actual obliteration takes place about 2 to 3 months. Now, closure of umbilical vein. The obliteration of umbilical vein occurs a little later than the arteries, allowing few extra volume of blood, which is 80 to 100 ml, to be received by the fetus from the placenta. After obliteration of the umbilical vein, it forms the ligamentum teres, and the ductus venosus forms the ligamentum venosum. Now the primary changes. Tying of the umbilical cord stops the placental circulation, producing the following changes. Blood flow through the umbilical vein stops, causing the contraction of ductus venosus within 1 to 3 hours after birth. As there is loss of tremendous blood flow through the placenta, this doubles the systemic vascular resistance. This increases the pressure in the left ventricle, left atrium, and left aorta. Also, there is blood received in the left atrium after being oxygenated from the lungs as the child has taken its first breath. So, the pressure in the left atrium automatically increases. Marked decrease in the volume of blood flowing up the inferior vena cava together with the expansion of previously collapsed lung produces a five-fold decrease in pulmonary vascular resistance. That is fall in pulmonary artery pressure. This leads to marked increase in pulmonary blood flow and decrease in right atrial and right ventricular pressures. Now the secondary changes. The secondary changes are divided into three parts. Closing of the three shunts present in the fetus. The first one being closure of foramen ovale, the second one closure of ductus arteriosus, and the third is closure of ductus venosus. The first is closure of foramen ovale. Increased left atrial pressure and decrease in right atrial pressure, which I have explained, cause backward pressure from left atrium to the right atrium, which is opposite to the one present that was present in the fetus, where the right atrial pressure was more and the left atrial pressure was less. So there was conduction of, so there was flow of blood from high pressure right atrium to low pressure left atrium when the blood was coming from inferior vena cava. So the flap was open, but now the flap, due to high pressure in the left atrium and low pressure in the right atrium, becomes closed. The small valve that lies over the foramen ovale on the left side of the atrial septum closes over the opening, preventing further flow through the foramen ovale. As a result, within a few minutes of birth, it causes closure of foramen ovale. Permanent closure of foramen ovale takes a few months to a year. Even if the permanent closure doesn't occur, left atrial pressure normally throughout the life remains 2 to 4 mm mercury greater than the right atrial pressure, which keeps the valve closed. Only in two conditions, this situation where there is patent foramen ovale can cause a problem, which I am going to discuss in coming slide. But before that, closure of ductus arteriosus. Within a few hours after birth, increase in the aortic pressure and decrease in the pulmonary artery pressure causes backward flow of blood from the aorta to the pulmonary artery. Gradual constriction of ductus arteriosus over the next 1 to 8 days, which is known as functional closure of ductus arteriosus, and finally permanent closure occurs at 2 to 3 weeks by growth of fibrous tissue into its lumen. Other factors which causes closure of ductus arteriosus. During fetal life, partial pressure of oxygen in the ductus blood is 15 to 20 millimeter mercury, which is increased to 100 millimeter mercury within a few hours after birth. This increased availability of oxygen is known to cause contraction of smooth muscle in the ductus arteriosus wall. Now the mechanism of closure of ductus arteriosus. The ductus arteriosus have smooth muscles which are oxygen sensitive, which constrict as partial pressure of oxygen increases. So this works by three ways: by reduction in the concentration of vasodilator PGF2 alpha, PGE1 and PGE2. PGE2 is the most contributing, which is prostaglandin E2. Release of catecholamines from adrenergic intervention of the ductus itself or from the adrenal medulla. Release of bradykinin from the lung goes to the left atrium to aorta and constrict ductus arteriosus. As a child is born and it takes its first inspiration, there is release of bradykinin from the lungs, which works as following: by going to left atrium, then to aorta and constricting ductus arteriosus. The third one is closure of ductus venosus. In fetal life, portal blood from the abdomen joins the blood from the umbilical vein, which via ductus venosus by bypassing liver reaches the inferior vena cava. After birth, blood flow through the umbilical vein ceases and within 1 to 3 hours, muscular wall of ductus venosus contracts. As a result, portal vein pressure increases from near 0 millimeter mercury, which forces the blood flow through the liver sinuses, which weren't earlier supplied blood. Anatomical closure of ductus venosus occurs within 3 to 7 days after birth. Now the changes in cardiac muscle, which takes place after child is born. Before birth, the wall thickness of the two ventricles is equal, but after birth, left ventricle wall grows thicker as systemic arterial pressure rises, and right ventricle wall thickness may not be great because of fall in pulmonary pressure. However, the number of muscle fibers in the two ventricles is approx the same and does not change from birth to adult life. Now we are going to discuss the third heading of this topic, which is components of postnatal circulation. Cardiovascular system of the newborn or neonatal. The blood volume in the neonatal is 300 ml. If an infant is left attached to the placenta for a few minutes after birth, or if the umbilical cord is stripped to force the blood out of its vessel into the baby, an additional 75 milliliter of blood enters the infant to make a total of 375 milliliter. The cardiac output of neonatal is 550 ml per minute. Blood pressure in the neonatal is systolic blood pressure is 20 to 60 millimeter mercury, the average being 40 millimeter mercury, and it increases to 60 millimeter mercury in the next 15 days and 70 to 90 millimeter mercury in the next 30 days. Now we are going to see the blood picture of the neonatal. The RBC count is average 6 to 7 million per microliter, which gradually decreases to 3 to 4 million per microliter due to physiological jaundice of the newborn. By approximately 8 to 10 weeks of age, due to absence of hypoxic stimulus of the fetal life, it returns to the normal within another 2 to 3 months. The WBC count at birth is 20,000 per microliter. Count decreases after second week, reaching normal adult value at 5 to 10 years. Structures after birth. These are the functional structures which were present in the fetus and after degeneration when a child is born. As they aren't needed in the fetus, these structures change to these non-functional structures. Umbilical vein changes to ligamentum teres, umbilical artery to medial umbilical ligament, ductus venosus to ligamentum venosum, foramen ovale to fossa ovalis, and ductus arteriosus to ligamentum arteriosus. Now we are going to talk about clinical conditions associated with this topic. The first is patent ductus arteriosus (PDA). PDA, in which there is persistent communication between the descending thoracic aorta and pulmonary artery that results from failure of normal physiological closure of ductus arteriosus. The occurrence of PDA is inversely related to gestational age and weight, with even greater incidence in preterm infants. Clinical signs of ductal patency include murmur, which has a special feature here of being mechanical or machinery like murmur, which increases in intensity during systole and decreases in intensity during diastole due to more pressure difference between pulmonary artery, between aorta and pulmonary artery during systole, and decrease in the same during diastole. Tachycardia and congestive heart failure and associated symptoms, as more blood is going from the aorta back to the pulmonary artery, which goes to the lungs. So there is overload of blood supply to the lungs, and since the blood is going from aorta to pulmonary artery, so less blood is supplied to the body, so the heart isn't able to supply the body properly, so there is congestive heart failure or failure of heart to to be able to provide blood to the body properly. Symptoms are not always present, therefore diagnostic imaging is critical if a PDA is suspected on clinical grounds. Three management strategies are currently available for PDA. The first is fluid restriction and diuretics as clinically appropriate, medical intervention, and finally surgical ligation if these two don't work. Pharmacological closure can be achieved via administration of intravenous indomethacin or ibuprofen lysine. Now the last topic is foramen ovale. It presents as a slit or tunnel-like passage in the interarterial septum formed by the failure of the postnatal fusion of septum primum, which is the flap-like wall, and septum secundum, in which the foramen ovale is present at the level of fossa ovalis. This flap wall, often presenting as a tunnel, permits the right to left shunting (RLS) of blood that was necessary for normal fetal circulation, but now it is not needed by the child when it is born. So if there is patent foramen ovale, then it normally doesn't cause problem like PDA. As we know, there is more pressure in the left atrium than the right atrium, which keeps it closed. But the problem occurs when the person having PFO does strenuous activities and there is pressure reversal. So there can be movement of air, air bubble, or if there is embolus present in the venous system of the PFO person, and during pressure reversal, the embolus or the air bubble goes from right atrium to the left atrium, which may directly go to the uh, aorta and be supplied to some of the important organ of the body and cause ischemia there. So only in these two conditions it may cause problem due to either mixing of blood or due to bubble transfer or due to embolus transfer. So normally the patent foramen ovale doesn't cause any problem. So this is all for this video. I hope you found it useful. Press the like button if you did. Share it with your friends to help them. And subscribe to my channel for more such videos. Thank you.